Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10-minute Bible lesson. We appreciate you joining us today. Listen, we've been having some really interesting lessons about Joseph. He's such a great Bible character. I love him. He's one of my favorite. So last time we left off where Pharaoh had this dream that it was really disturbing to him. And so he called, of course, his magicians and his wise men to tell him so they could interpret the dream. They couldn't interpret it. And at that time, the butler remembered what happened to him when he was in prison. Because in there, he had a dream as well, and so did the baker. And he remembered there was a young Hebrew man in there that interpreted that dream. And he told Pharaoh that, and Pharaoh sent for Joseph and called Joseph out of the prison. And Joseph said this to him. He said to Pharaoh, he says, God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And then Pharaoh tells him the dream. And here's the dream. So Pharaoh has this dream, and in his dream he sees these 7 really fat and healthy cows. And then he sees 7 lean, skinny, gaunt cows. And something really weird happened. The lean and gaunt cows ate up the 7 fat cows. And then he had another dream. And in this dream, he saw 7 healthy shocks of wheat or grain. Oh, they were just really, really healthy looking. And then he had another dream where there were 7 blighted, skinny, withered stalks of grain. And another weird thing happened. The 7 blighted stalks of grain ate up the healthy grain. So this was the dream, and he told Joseph to him, and here's what Joseph said. Joseph said this. He says, then Joseph, and this is in Genesis chapter 41, verse 25. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, listen to this, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. So let me just take a moment here and say that one of the things that makes God God is that he knows everything. He's omniscient. He knows everything. He knows the past, the present, and he knows the future. He knows what's going to happen in the future. Listen, God is so wise, he can hear our thoughts within us. And that's how he hears our prayers. When we pray silently, he even hears those prayers. Think about a being that can do that. To me, that's amazing. Not only that, he sees our dreams. And sometimes he can even give us dreams. And I believe he gave Pharaoh this dream to show him what was going to happen in the future. And so Joseph explains to Pharaoh about what God is about to do. So we're going to look in Genesis 41 and looking in verses 29 and 30. And here's what they say. Indeed, 7 years of great plenty will come throughout all the land of Egypt. Now, this is the interpretation of it that God gives to Joseph. But after them, 7 years of famine will arise, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine will deplete the land. So Joseph tells Pharaoh that the reason that the dreams are from God is because they come in twos. And he tells them that he says another thing is that they're gonna happen soon. So he tells them that God is about to establish this thing, and he's going to bring it to pass really quickly. Then Joseph gives a great wisdom to Pharaoh. Really good wisdom, and that's recorded in chapter 41, verses 33 and 34. Let's read that. So it says this. It says, now therefore, this is Joseph giving advice to Pharaoh. Now therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man, and set him over the land of Egypt, let Pharaoh do this and let him appoint officers over the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years. This is the advice that Joseph gives Pharaoh. Now, it's great advice that he gives to Pharaoh. What does he tell him? He says, listen, store up the grain. Take advantage of these 7 plentiful years. Store them all up. Then you will have them in reserve when the 7 years of famine comes. And Pharaoh, he loves this advice. He thinks this is just great. In fact, it's so great that he says to all of his servants around him, can we find such a one as this? He's speaking of Joseph. He says this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God. Pharaoh recognized that God's Spirit had to be in Joseph to be able to tell him what was going to happen in the future. And then Pharaoh says this, in closing, this is our last verse, and this is in Genesis 41, verses 40 and 41. And this is what Pharaoh says to Joseph, you shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Think about that. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. So Pharaoh did something I thought was really, really cool. He took a ring off of his hand, his own hand. It was his signet ring, and he put it on the hand of Joseph, which I thought was an amazing thing. And not only did he do that, but he had Joseph clothed in garments of fine linen. And then he put a gold chain around Joseph's neck. Wow. Now listen, that's all we have for today. We're going to pick it up next time. We're just trying to do this in pieces, but next time we'll see what Joseph does and how he plans this all out. But to me, it's just such an amazing story because it all has to do with fulfilling God's plan and his protection for his people. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a really good week and you'll tune in and see the story next time.